Hello and welcome to the British Chamber of Commerce Singapore's podcast channel. We're thrilled to present in-depth discussions on business, global affairs and news across Singapore, ASEAN and the United Kingdom. Thank you for your continued support and we hope you enjoy this episode.
Hello and welcome to the British Chamber of Commerce podcast channel. My name's David Kelly and welcome to this episode of In Conversation. And today I'm really pleased with our guest today, a community leader, a colleague and a friend of the community here. I've been very lucky to be part of a very close-knit network of British expatriates, those that work here, work hard in Singapore. And I'm delighted that we've got our head of college, our founding head of college for Dulwich College, Singapore, Nick Magnus MBE. Nick, a very, very warm welcome to you.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm delighted to be here and hopefully over the next sort of 35 minutes or so, I would sort of, as my 13-year journey here in Singapore comes to an end, I'd sort of like to reflect upon that and that adventure, and then just talk generally about sort of education and leadership and what I've learnt along the way, how the Chamber has supported the college on that journey, and then my sort of hopes and aspirations and dreams for the future.
Fab. So where did it all start? You were in China, you moved down to Singapore, you had a brief to set up a new college here. How did that all happen? What was the first thing you did when you first landed on the shores of Singapore?
So we arrived on the 1st of August. It was during the London Olympics. It was the 1st of August 2012. So my young family, my daughter was 7, my son was 5, and we were all crammed into a hotel room at the Novotel down by Clarke Quay. And yeah, I was here to build a brand new school. It was a greenfield site. We were slated to open in 2014 and I did not have a clue. I did not know where to start. I'd built a school in China, but arriving in Singapore I didn't know anybody. I hadn't had any training for building a school, and it was right, get on with it, and get on with it we did.
Did you have the team around you, or did you build the team, or did you land and then have to build the infrastructure to actually make this happen within 2 years? It's quite a short time.
So we were in a temporary office to begin with at Raffles Place. So we had the company lawyer, we had a project manager and an accountant. So there were 4 of us crammed into this shoebox. Now, having spent all of my career working in school surrounded by students, it was a pretty miserable existence to begin with. And then we just grew and expanded. We moved to an office in Novena, which many of our parents and some of our staff will remember. And then, on the 28th of August 2014, the school opened. Just.
And with how many students? How many students, kids walked through in the first day?
Yeah, so I mean our timing was ideal. So at that time, I mean many of the listeners that were here 13 years ago will remember this. Getting into a good international school, it was so difficult. Wait lists were 2, 3, 4 years, and that's why EDB were looking for new partners to come in and add to the international school landscape here. We rather arrogantly thought we would open with 400. And we opened with 884, which we believe is still one of the largest international school openings ever. I remember when Harrow opened in Hong Kong with 750 and the whole international school world gasped. We opened with 884.
And on that first day, as the head of the college, what goes right, what goes wrong? It was everything really well planned out before? I mean, it must have been, right, to welcome it?
Well, we thought it was. It was carnage. So the school was a building site. You had sort of everyone turning up, all the parents turning up. No one had read anything about where to go and what to do, so all of our preparations got out the window. But we bumbled through it. We got through it. The most important thing was that the children went to class. They met their class teachers. They met their new classmates, and at the end of the day, the vast majority of them came out of the class with big smiles on their faces, and that was it. We were up and running, and we've never looked back.
Amazing. You talk about Dulwich as a village. in itself. How do you keep the community together within that village, and how do you as Nick lead an amazing world-class education system?
Well, I think for starters, you have to have a very clear vision for what the school and what the community will be, and be very clear about the values which you hold dear. You know, what are the values that are important to us? What is the culture that we want to create here? And then you promote that, and it won't be for everybody. Some people won't agree with it, others will. And so you get the right people on the bus, okay? And then you start driving the bus, come on this journey with us. And I think that's the key thing. I think that often a mistake international schools make is trying to be all things to all people. And I think you've got to be really comfortable and confident in who you are and what you are, and say, no, this is us. And as I say, if you like what we're saying, get on the bus.
Brilliant. 10 years of leading the college. I have an amazing memory of walking past 3 different age groups around Dulwich, and from the young Mr. Magnus to Mr. Magnus, everybody seemed to respect you. You must have some amazing memories over that 10-year journey. Have you got something that you can share with our listeners today?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very fortunate. I get to work with the most amazing young people and the most amazing teachers and administrators. And you know, when you're having your worst day, all I've got to do is walk out the door and go and find some children and have a chat with them, and it just restores your faith in humanity and also your faith in yourself. So really fortunate there. I mean, far too many memories to sort of pick out individual cases, but I do remember our first ever Founders Day. It was May 2015. That absolute sense of relief that we'd got through the year, that we hadn't messed it up, that we had delivered on the promises that we made. I looked out at the audience and looked at the parents and looked at the students, and by and large, the vast majority had big smiles on their faces, and I thought to myself, phew, we've got it right. But then I suppose the highlight for me over the last 11 years that the college has been in operation, last year was the Dulwich Olympiad. So all of the colleges came. We had Dulwich College in London, James Allen Girls' School, our sister schools in China and Korea, and we came together for a whole week of sport, music, art, drama and dance, a real celebration of everything that makes us uniquely Dulwich. 900 students from our sister schools to celebrate Dulwich. It was in my 34 years as an educator, it was the best thing that I've ever been involved in.
And from the best to perhaps one of the most challenging times, which we were working very closely together when we were all locked down through COVID, how did you keep the community together, going from almost teacher to leader to keeping everything moving and keeping everybody educated and all the parents happy and the community happy? You were an amazing lens and an amazing support to the community here. Yeah,
well, I'm not sure I kept everybody happy during that time, because none of us were very happy. I think, you know, when I've been an expatriate for a long time now. I've been an expatriate for 27 years, and we talk about family and we talk about what it means to be a community, and that's all well and good when the sun is shining and the sky is blue and we're all going off to St Toza at the weekend, happy day. But the true test of family and community is when things go wrong. Now, none of us foresaw a pandemic, and when that happens and we closed down and we were here on the island, and never has Singapore felt so small as we did. And we were, you know, many of us were 10,000 miles away from family and loved ones during an uncertain time. We just have to come together. There's no point in whinging and moaning and feeling hard done by. You come together, you look after each other, you support one another, and that's when you really put the meaning into family. And I think the whole communication piece was key. What was wonderful was how the British community came together. Cara Owen, the High Commissioner, played a pivotal role here, and we came together as members of the British community from the High Commission, the British Chamber, the British Club, the British Association, all of those British international schools. We came together, we had weekly sort of Zoom calls where we just basically said, is everyone okay? Is anyone in need? What can we do for each other? And it was truly humbling to be part of that. And it was a wonderful example of us coming together, and it was, if I can be so forgiven for being very British about it, it was a real sort of Dunkirk spirit, which was wonderful to be part of.
Definitely. Is there anything from that period that you've taken forward in the college? Either use of technology or different way of being flexible with certain policies?
Absolutely. Well, the idea that you can teach without being face-to-face, we'd have just laughed that out of the room 6-7 years ago. But that hybrid approach to learning, which many people had talked about before, a lot of universities were employing it. Well, it absolutely does work, and there's much debate about, the importance of face-to-face, and I'm a people person, so I really need that face-to-face contact and that sort of human interaction. But there's so much that we can do with technology. We can embrace technology, hybrid learning, and the pandemic showed us that we can do it.
Absolutely incredible. And sometimes I forget that you're a teacher. That's where your background's come from. You're a history teacher. How did you get into teaching? Why did you want to teach, and how did that journey start?
Yeah, well, it's a bit sad really, because so in my family, all of the men in my family were in the military, either in the Royal Marines or Royal Navy, and a lot of the women were teachers, and so it was always assumed that I would go into the services. And I lived in Devon, I lived in Plymouth, and the military was everywhere. But it was, and I was pushing forward with that, and I got to about the age of 17, and I suddenly realised that I didn't want to go into the Royal Navy. I actually wanted to become a teacher. And my poor grandfather, who served in the Royal Navy from 29 to 49, didn't speak to me for a week, but he finally forgave me.
And why history?
Well, I'm a primary school teacher actually, but history is my great passion and my great love. So I have a degree in medieval history, which actually qualifies you for absolutely nothing other than to teach medieval history.
And do you still teach?
I stopped about 2 years ago, but I taught right up for the first 8 years of college life. I taught history, I taught geography, but in the last couple of years I travel a lot now, and it just wasn't fair on the students. They were quite happy that I wasn't there, but some of the parents less so.
And for those that perhaps don't know you, sort of travelling as the head of a college in Singapore sounds like a bit of an unusual thing to sort of say, but you've had a regional role with Fabricia, haven't you? Sort of bringing together other education leaders from around the region. Could you just unpick sort of your role that you've had there, because that's been quite inspiring.
Yeah, so I do like a good meeting. I do like a committee, and as those of you that know me will know, I do like the sound of my own voice. So, and I've been a head for a long time now. I've been a head for 24 years, and I've actually been in school now for 51 years. This is the sad bit that I was referring to earlier. I went to school at the age of 4, and I'm now 55. I haven't left school, so I've been at school for 51 years. So I'm completely institutionalised, but been a head for 24 years, and was part of Fabricia, the Federation of British International Schools in Asia, over 100 member schools, and was just approached that, you've got a lot of experience, you know a lot of people, would you be interested in supporting the Federation strategically moving forward? And I jumped at the opportunity, and I was responsible for new heads induction, so lots of new heads coming in and making sure that they felt supported. Great to establish those relationships. Really enjoyed it, and I also serve on the Governance Council of the Green School in Bali. I'm currently the secretary of the British Chamber of Commerce, and I'm also on a sustainability group called the Blue Beak Group, which is looking at developing ocean literacy.
Fantastic. And from the British sort of education perspective regionally, it's a big part of the UK's heritage and history, isn't it, around education standards and expansion as well. It's kind of in our DNA.
Yeah. I think when I look, I'm British and I'm very proud to be British. And I think that our education system is our greatest export to the world.
What do you think, because obviously 50 years being in school, you've been taught, you've been a teacher, you're leading teachers. What do you think the greatest responsibility of an educator is today?
Well, it's very simple. We have the future in our hands. Our children will be the leaders, the change makers, the peacemakers, the influencers of tomorrow. And we are blessed that from 8 o'clock in the morning until about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, these parents give us their most prized possession and say, there you go, and for the lion's share of the day, don't think twice about it. Now, of course, here in Singapore, they pay a handsome price for that, but for 9 hours of the day, we are trusted with these young people. And it's our job to try and shape, nurture, mould, instill those values that which we hold so dear. And then for those young people, and I've got a graduation ceremony coming up in a few weeks' time, to go out into that big wide world completely comfortable with who they are and what they are and where they're from. And I fundamentally believe that they will make the world a better place.
Fantastic. And this is probably a bit of an unfair question, but has there been somebody that's really surprised you or just excelled beyond their wildest dreams, your wildest dreams, where you know you've had that impact in their life? Are you able to share any of those stories?
I think there have been lots of success stories. Let's not forget that, and I think sometimes we can be a bit harsh as parents now, and I've got a 20-year-old and a 18-year-old, so I speak as a parent. Let's not forget how difficult it is to be a teenager, all right? Being a teenager is extremely challenging. It always has been. It was when we were at school, it was when our parents and our grandparents. It's even harder now. We don't need to go into detail about social media and screen time, and of course, the recent program Adolescence was a real eye opener for many people. Not so much for me. I work with teenagers and work with young people, so I'm not going to go into any specifics, but I get to work with teenagers and young people every day, and I see them in all of their glory, and they will make mistakes because they're human beings and they're fundamentally children. But I've been fortunate enough with my staff and with their parents to work through some of those issues and just be with them, side by side with them on that journey. And I see them come out as adults at the end of it. And occasionally they turn around and say, thanks very much. And occasionally they say, oh, by the way, sorry for being like that.
Sometimes you're all right. We talked about a little bit of technology and AI. I mean, it's shaping a lot of the things that we're doing as businesses and as business community. But how are you looking at AI in schools, whether that's linked to teaching or whether that's linked to the research or homework? How are you sort of embedding that in the education?
Well, first and foremost, let's not shy away from it. It's here. It's here. It's now. It's happening. Our students, our colleagues in the workplace, we're all embracing this. So, stop worrying about it, embrace it and make it work for you. I think from my point of view, schools are notoriously inefficient, very, very people heavy, and as teachers sometimes we're really good at occupying our times. We want to be busy, we want to occupy our time, and we come up with all of these tasks which take forever. Actually, there could be a far more efficient way. So, for example, a great example is report writing, the bane of every teacher's life. So you have to write your reports. Obviously, they're typed now. Shows how old I am. So you type your reports now. But then, once you finish them all, then the worst thing, you've got to give them to somebody else to proofread. And it's the greatest pain in the backside, having to proofread someone's report to look for spelling, tense, punctuation, grammar mistakes. Not anymore. We now use AI. You put it through the program. It corrects everything. It doesn't write the report. The human writes the report. This just corrects it and takes out the need for an adult to spend hours proofreading.
Increasing efficiency. AI can't mark homework yet?
It can, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it can. And I've seen a chemistry lesson recently where traditionally you would have a lesson where the teacher would walk in, they would talk, the students would listen, and then it's like, right, and then you get on with this task. And when you finish that task, you go on to this task, and then you go on to this task here. And the teacher runs round trying to check everybody, and you've got different groups, and they finish tasks, and they put their hands up, and they've got to wait for the teacher to come to them. So now, the teacher delivers the start of the lesson, they talk for 10-15 minutes, and they're off and running. But rather than waiting for the teacher to come around and mark the work, it's marked by the computer. If they get it right, they go automatically on to the next exercise. There's no waiting around. If they get it wrong, hands up, teacher comes, works with them, works out where they're going wrong. So as a result of that, within half an hour, you might have one group who are on their 6th activity. You've got another group who are still on their 1st activity working with the teacher. What you haven't got is groups sitting around, twiddling their thumbs, waiting for the teacher, don't go on to the next exercise before I've checked your work. This is what AI can do.
In classroom efficiency, amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. Where do you think the future's going to be with tech and education?
Well, who knows?
If you had a crystal ball, how much would be blended, do you think? Or
Well, I think for me, what we've got to do, we've got to move away from this exam culture that we have. So, for example, things like IGCSEs, what was the traditional O-level, a leaving certificate designed for young people in the 40s and 50s and 60s who traditionally left school at 16. For those students going on to what we call sixth form or year 12 and 13, IGCSE, how fit for purpose is it? Universities are crying out that their undergraduates don't have the skill set to be able to function and to think critically, and yet they still insist on an exam culture which is based on content rather than skills. So I think, we've got to look at what the 21st century mindset is, what the future looks like, and we've got to be brave and move away from a content-heavy exam culture to a more skills-based approach.
Absolutely brilliant. And it would be remiss of me not to mention sustainability and Dulwich College Singapore, because your greenhouse is absolutely amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about the story around how that was initiated and some of the challenges?
Yeah.
Also, it's an amazing building, and you've sort of shaped a bit of policy here in Singapore with that building, which is quite interesting.
We have. So originally it was supposed to be a boarding house. And we were going to build this boarding house for about 200 boarders, but then we filled the school, so we didn't need any boarders. So we thought, right, well, we've got this space, what do we do with it? Now, we could have built another big concrete sort of box and squeezed some more people in it, but we thought, no, what can we do with it? How can we be creative? How can we be innovative? And we came up with the greenhouse, which is our sort of innovation hub. And there are lots and lots of wonderful spaces within it to really try and inspire young people. And then we thought about that whole design and what we could do here. And we thought, well, we talk about sustainability, but what if we lived sustainability? What if we built something to demonstrate to our students and to our teachers and to our parents, this is what you can do. If you think outside of the box, if you're creative enough, and if you're prepared to make that investment, this is what you can achieve. This is the future of construction moving forward. So that was our idea. The greenhouse opened in November 2023. It was delayed for a year, over a year by COVID. And then suddenly, from everywhere, from all over Singapore, from all over Southeast Asia, people started calling us and saying, we've heard about this building. Can we come and see? Can we come and see? We must have had 30, 40 schools from the Ministry of Education here in Singapore saying, we'd like to come and see, we'd like to come and see. Really engaged, really interested, and all going away saying, this is the future, this is what we should be doing.
And am I right in thinking that maybe some of the delay was because a piece of policy or a piece of regulation had to change, which made the building even more pioneering around fire regulations. Is that true?
Yeah, there was all sorts of things. We know one of the reasons why we love Singapore is because we have such great rules and regulations, and of course, there were certain rules that we had to comply by and go back to the drawing board with. We had to work very closely with the LTA in terms of traffic flow, etc. So these were all challenges, but very relevant ones to make sure that we were compliant. But it takes time. It takes time to get something right.
Especially with new materials as well. The school itself, the college itself, is absolutely in the heart of a small part of a community as well. What sort of community outreach activities do you do to fit into the little bit of Singapore that you're in?
Yeah. So when I arrived here, I was and I had this blank canvas. It's not very often you get a blank canvas to paint on, and I had this aspiration to build one of the best international schools in the world, not just in Singapore or in Southeast Asia, but in the world. A unique opportunity, and there are very few countries out there that can support such an aspiration. Singapore absolutely up there with the best of them for supporting that. And so one of those aspirations that I had was that I didn't want this international school to be a school for rich foreign kids with a fancy clock tower which operates in complete isolation. These children come in, these children go out, and they have no interaction with the people of Bukit Batok, with that local community. So right from the outset, I was determined that we would reach out to the community. We would reach out to some of those grassroots organisations, community centres, the schools. We've got St Luke's Hospice, some of the homes that look after the elderly, and it was really important that we were an integral part, a valued part of the community, and that's what we set out to do. And with a 2.5-year period where the pandemic got in the way, I think that we've largely achieved that. And you know, our children, every single week we've got our children going out to work at, with the senior citizens, or helping at Sparkle Tots Nursery, or going to do music therapy at St Luke's Hospice. We've got lots of exchange programs with local schools. We have students from the Millennia Institute across the road coming in and doing work placement and so on. So it's always a work in progress, but we take that responsibility very seriously.
And from the school going out, you mentioned about building a world-class school. It is, because the facilities are, and you support Singaporeans coming in as well, I think, as well. I think Singapore Paralympian team use your facilities, is that right?
We did, yes. So we were very lucky that Yip Pin Shu, the Paralympic medalist, was trained by Nick Magnus, who was our head of aquatics, and so Teresa Goh and Yip Pin Shu for a number of years trained at the pool. And in actual fact, after her victory in I think it was in Brazil, we actually named our aquatic centre the Yip Pin Shu Aquatic Centre in her honour. So I used to chat to her every morning as she finished her session and was waiting for her taxi. And what an absolute inspiration to us all.
Yeah, she's a bit of a superhero of mine. I really do admire her. So your career has taken you to a point in the last couple of years that not only are you on the board of the British Chamber of Commerce, and congratulations on that, but you were awarded a King's Honour last year. Can you just tell us about that and your journey to Buckingham Palace as well?
Yeah, so
if you don't mind.
Yeah. So it was a great surprise. I'd often remark to people that a lot of people worked very hard to make that happen, and I wasn't necessarily one of them. But yeah, it was a great honour. I was invited to Eden Hall to meet with Cara, the High Commissioner, and well, you could have knocked me down with a feather when she. I think I said to her, "What have I done?" And she was very kind. So yeah, a great honour. And it's not about me. It's very much about the community and the hundreds of people, the thousands of people who've been part of that journey. So it's very much on their behalf. And it was a special day. It was particularly relevant because I went with my mum and dad and my wife. And my dad, who was not well at the time, but he was there and he made it and he did it. And very sadly, 38 days later, he passed away. But he was there, and I'll always have that special memory and that special time with him.
Fantastic, and for services to British education in the British communities overseas as well. So fully deserved, and I'm so pleased your father was there too. Can we talk about the Chamber?
Sure.
How did you get involved with the Chamber?
Well, out of necessity. So, as I said, I arrived on the 1st of August 2012 and didn't have a clue. So I had this project manager. I said, right, where do we start? And of course, no one knew we were here. We were opening in 2 years' time, and I needed to say, hi, Singapore, Dulwich College, Singapore. We're opening soon. You know, come and listen to what we have to say. So we organised a meeting at the British Chamber. It was a short walk from where we were, and we were like literally walked in the door and said, hi, we're here, how can you help us? And the Chamber were magnificent. They said, right, it's very simple. We can promote you, we can do this, we can do that, we can help you to organise events. And before we knew it, you know, that the Chamber was promoting us and just saying, you know, this new school has arrived and will be opening in 2014. It may be of interest to you. We held our official opening at Eden Hall at the High Commissioner's residence, very much supported by the Chamber. Also helped by the fact that we paid our sterling membership just to show our gratitude as well. But yeah, the Chamber have been instrumental, and we've worked closely with them ever since.
No, thank you. And as a board member, have you seen what have you seen sort of in your post, sort of being on the board and sort of representing the British business community here?
Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit nervous about coming onto the board, to be honest with you, because I'm a teacher, and so all of this business talk about, you know, small businesses and big businesses and medium, I was like, oh my word, what are you talking about? But for me, it's all about that community, and I've worked with people from all sorts of backgrounds, not just British people as well, because there is that diversity within the Chamber and within the board. But I've worked with people from the shipping industry and banks and lawyers and insurance, and it's just, but you know, when we talk to each other, and I'm a teacher, when we talk to each other, it's about people, it's about relationships, it's about leadership, it's about kindness, it's about supporting one another. It's all interconnected, and it really is quite straightforward, really.
Super, and you're teaching the future board members of the British Chamber of Commerce as well, which is exciting.
Exactly.
So we're going to be losing you in June. Where are you going next?
So, well, I'm going back to where it all began. So, after 24 years, I'll be hanging up my cape and my mortarboard, and I'll be going back to Kenya. My international journey began in Kenya in 1998. We went for a 2-year jolly and stayed for nearly 9 years before moving to China and then Singapore. So yeah, I'm moving back to Nairobi, to the same schools group, but rather than being the head of that school, I'll actually be the CEO of the schools group. So I'll have responsibility for 12 schools. So it's a complete change of direction. Again, something that I'm absolutely not qualified for, but then I wasn't qualified to build a school either, and I've done that twice.
I think you're very, very humble, very humble. I think you're more than qualified, and we look forward to seeing your journey. But as you leave Singapore, what 2 or 3 memories that really stick with you as you get on that plane?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me is, I'm going to be quite emotional. I absolutely love my school. I love my school. I'm very proud of it. It's far from perfect, but I love my school. No one will ever love that school more than me. I often refer to it at home as my 3rd child. My wife and my 2 children have fully accepted that we now have an adopted child in the family, and Dulwich College, Singapore. It's my magnus opus. It's turned out to be all that I hoped and dreamed it would be, and I'm very proud of it.
Fabulous.
Excuse me.
No, that's okay. That's okay. It's great to see passionate leaders as well. And I think the journey that you've described today it's been so incredible, so inspiring. There is one question we ask everybody on the channel, which is, if we can give you the British Chamber of Commerce Singapore's time machine, and with all of your 50 plus years of being in the school system, you could go back to a younger Nick and give a younger Nick some advice, what would you give him?
Well, this advice is relevant. It's relevant to when you're 8 or a hormonal 14-year-old, or in business in your 30s, or the CEO or director or partner in your 40s and 50s. Two sound bites from me. One, be yourself. Just be yourself. And the second one is, it will pass. Now, we all go through moments where it's 3 o'clock in the morning and we're in bed and we're staring up at the ceiling and there's no light at the end of the tunnel, and we're thinking, how am I going to get through this? There'll be a situation and you just cannot see how you will get through it. But it will pass, and it always does. And what is keeping you awake at 3 o'clock in the morning now will be a distant memory and fish and chip paper in a few months' time. So, it will pass, be yourself, and if you remember those two things, you'll be a lot happier.
College head, community leader, colleague, friend, Nick Magnus MBE, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the British Chamber of Commerce Singapore's podcast channel. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating and review on Spotify, Apple, Google and other podcast platforms. If you enjoyed this episode, please spread the word by sharing it across your network. For more information about the Chamber and what we do, visit our website at www.britcham.org.sg and tune in next time for a brand new episode.